Joe Douglas, don't even show up to work, please. Last 7 weeks, there's an injury clause. We don't need you eating our food, accidentally falling down. Robert Saleh let go. We were just talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy's deal is done at the end of the year, and we asked you this morning to stop by the program because we were having a discussion. It's like each year, the amount of coaching changes is pretty wild. And we kind of, we were trying to guess in the office, how many coaching changes will there be at the end of the season? Now, obviously, Jets already happened. Saints already happened. Are the Jaguars going to happen? We have no idea, but the most ever has been 10 coaching changes in an offseason. It's happened 4 different times. Okay, so obviously those are the years. 2023, there was 8. We assume Jacksonville's happening. We don't know if we're supposed to do that or not, but that sounds like it was. There's already 3. How many are you expecting at the end of this particular season? And this isn't just firing. This is coaches' changes because McCarthy's on the last year of his contract here in Dallas.
Yeah, in 2021, there are people who retired.
I have a record of this, but I think there was a year there was more than 10.
Really?
I could look at my computer, but I believe there was a year where there were more than 10. Now, we'll go back and look at that after this, but that's neither here nor there. I think when we go into this season, look, 5-22 told you that last year was going to be a heavy year. And it was heavy, but it was not as heavy as it could have been because there were certain franchises that decided to stick by their coach and not make a change. Like we wondered last year if Chicago would do anything, and Chicago didn't. And we wondered if the Jets would do anything, and they didn't. We wondered if New Orleans would do it, and they didn't. So there are obvious holdovers right now that didn't get changed out at the end of last season. When I look ahead into this season, there will be no less than 7. And I would say the realistic range is 7 to 9. And it's probably closer to the over than the under. And if it came in over 9, that wouldn't be the most shocking thing either. But I think 7 to 9 is realistic, probably 8 or 9.
Okay, it's crazy to think about all the change, and then that's a third of the league. That's a third of the league.
Let me tell you something. This has become, for better or worse, in many cases worse, this has become part of the sport. It's like there's a playoff season and there's a hunting season. And the playoff season starts and the hunting season for coaches starts. And it's part of the sport and part of the theater. Like, let's not lose sight of this. It's a great sport to watch. We all love it, but it's also entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
And part of the entertainment is these coaches in charge, and these owners are making so much money that if they want to blow out a coach and pay him, it doesn't mean that much. And sometimes the best way to send a message to the fan base is, hey, we're changing coaches. It's a jump start. It's almost like it gets things going in the right direction, not the same old, fresh conversation. And so that's become part of the sport too. We have the playoff chase and we have the chase for jobs, like all together, all in November, December, and January.
I wrote a note in my notes section in like 2015 or something. And it was about with social media becoming as loud as it is. You know, back in the day, ownership only had like a newspaper they had to deal with telling them stuff, or people they accidentally ran into in public telling them stuff. Other than that, didn't have to hear anything. Didn't have to hear anything at all. Now with social media, and I don't know if you're learning of a new coach getting fired or a GM getting fired or a name that could potentially be replacing Joe Douglas in New York. Whatever you're going through, you do what you have to do. But nowadays, ownership hears what people think of their team, of their franchise. They hear directly from their fans. Now, I'm not saying every owner is on their Twitter account or on their X account, but a lot of them are. A lot of them have access to social media. A lot of them are able to hear directly from their fans when that was never the case. And they don't want to give off the perception of contentment ever to these people. I did everything I could. They want to be babyface with their fan base. And a quick way to do that is to say, I didn't like the way this was running. I'm going to change it. And also, there's no salary cap on these coaches. So you can fire somebody after a year even, or 2 years, and pay them 5 years worth of money, and you're not going to take any hits against how good your team can be. What was the number 2 years ago? $800 million?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you remember? I think you might have broke the news. Roger Goodell sent out a memo to the owners and was like, hey, you guys are currently paying $800 million in guaranteed cash to fired coaches right now. Just almost like, hey, just a heads up, this is what's taking place. So I think that's a big part of it. I think social media and the ability to hear from the fans more so than ever before from ownership is a massive piece of the new generation of like, no, we ain't standing for this. And there's not as much patience as there used to be, Shefty, I think, personally.
And the TV deals and the gambling money and the international money make it such that it is more palatable than ever to swallow some of that money, despite the fact that the commissioner warned against it. So if you have to blow out your coaching staff and eat those millions of dollars in salary, you know what? Nobody likes to do it, but they could afford to do it.
Yeah. So maybe Ambassador Johnson comes back and makes a big-time play. Maybe Jerry Jones figures out who the next one is to run that team, maybe, and coach that team. There's obviously going to be a lot of open spots. You just talked about it, both a GM and a head coach. Let's stay at the coaching one. Go ahead, D-Butch.
Yeah, speaking of, what hot names are out there that we may not know of? Obviously, we all hear Ben Johnson all the time. We hear Aaron Glenn all the time. What are some other hot names that maybe become the new head coaches of these 7 to 10 spots that open up?
Well, first of all, before I get to that, D-Butt, let me just say this. I said this to you before. One thing that I love doing on this show is, and it speaks to how many people watch it, is that when you are doing it, you are fact-checked in real time. So I got a text from somebody, I could say actually, Evan Kaplan, ace researcher at ESPN. He said, I'm on a plane, so I may be late, but there were 11 head coaching changes following the 2008 season going into 2009. 11. I knew that there was a season.
Okay, so congrats to Cap. Thanks for paying attention to that. Yeah. We got our information from Forbes. I guess that was the stat that we got. We got 10 from Forbes. So I guess they didn't account for a retirement, even though it was coaching swap.
Damn it, Forbes.
Well, that's also on us, probably. I would certainly assume that. 11 in 2008 is a lot. But back to D-Butch's question. Who are some? Slowick, obviously, down in Houston. We just saw him.
Yeah. Well, no, here. So, okay. So we're going to talk candidates here. And inevitably, somebody is going to get overlooked, which I never like to do because we're doing this off the top of our head right now.
Okay.
But I think when we're talking about coaches right now, there are some guys that I think stand out, and I think at the very least are going to be garnering multiple head coaching interviews. Okay? Bill Belichick.
What?
Mike Vrabel.
What?
Ben Johnson.
What?
Aaron Glenn.
What?
Brian Flores.
What?
And I think Vance Joseph is going to get a bunch of interviews with the job that he's done on Denver's defense. So, there's 6 coaches that just stand out to me. When we're talking GMs, I think there are a lot of people out there. I could think of.
Go ahead.
Well, one guy, you think of winning teams, right? Who wins? Kansas City wins. Mm-hmm. And last year, the Carolina Panthers hired Brant Tillis away to be an executive vice president. And the Chiefs have had a guy there for a while, Mike Borgonzi, who does a great job with personnel.
Borgonzi.
To me,
this guy knows the ball.
You see that? I knew you'd like that one, Pat.
Yeah, Borgonzi. Yeah, Borgonzi's a good guy.
I think he's a guy that will get interviews. I'm not thinking GMs.
To be clear, Shefty, the GMs, anytime they get hired, none of us know who the hell they are.
Yeah.
It's like we don't really know who these people are.
Their names to you.
Yeah. Normally, when they just pop up, it's like, all right.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay.
Where'd he come from?
And then, exactly. This guy knows. Yeah, he sat in this guy's been in the war room before. Okay, he knows what it takes to make trades. This guy knows what it's like day to day to win. That's always the takeaway, but nobody knows what anybody's going to be like when they're in a position of power. What is their leadership group going to look like, their scouting group look like, and what are they going to get into? It's I feel like the GM one's impossible to hire as well.
Yeah.
Head coaching job, I think impossible to hire. I think GM impossible to hire, which is why there's so many of these moves to be made.
And a lot of GMs don't really get that second chance. A lot of head coaches, I feel like, get a second chance, maybe even a third chance, depending on who you are. But GM just kind of, a lot of times, it's one shot. I know Telesco, he obviously got rehired pretty quickly, but for the most part, That's your one shot. You better take advantage of it.
I love that. Would be, if I was to get into anything, that would be the angle that you would want to get. Ownership would be the right one.
Sure.
Ownership would be the right angle to get.
Definitely.
Into. Tom Brady's doing it right.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is doing it right. Another Michigan man. But the general manager one, I don't want to say it's not as like, I don't think they're there 4 a.m. to midnight, but boy, every decision you make is going to be judged. Like coaching, I think you make 1,000 decisions a day with what you're doing, and you can get away with some misses. GM, like everything is going to get. This guy chose to do this. This guy chose to do this. This woman chose to do this. This guy chose, like whatever the case is. That's a tough spot. That's a very tough spot. All right, last question here, Chef, because we know you're very busy. It's a big day. A general manager has been fired in the NFL, even though he's on the last year of his contract. I don't want to see your face anymore. That's a hilarious reason to fire.
Get out.
Ty has a question for you.
Shefty, what about some college guys making the jump? It seems like every year, Lincoln Riley, and then there was a report recently that came out that said Dan Lanning was going to be, kind of a hot name. I think a lot of times that's just leverage for those guys to get raises at their universities. But we saw Jeff Hafley leave Boston College last year to go be the coordinator, defensive coordinator for the Packers. Do you envision a lot more college guys making the jump this year, whether it's head coach or, an offensive or defensive coordinator?
Well, I would say this, that last year you saw an exodus of college guys wanting to get out to go to the NFL, headlined by Jim Harbaugh. And there are different reasons, but I think more and more with the way that college is being run now, and I don't cover it. Pete Thamel could speak to this much better than I can, but it's a business now with the collectives, with the NIL money. You're bidding for player. Like the sport and coaching the sport has changed. It's a different deal now, right? And I think some guys, it's not for everybody anymore. It's not for everybody anymore. I think they want to move on and move out. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there are more college guys that want to get to the NFL. I think Dan Lanning is a guy, like, I met him one time, and I watched that guy on TV, and he is incredibly impressive. And I'm sure there are going to be teams that want to talk to him. I don't know that he even want to leave Oregon. Like, they've got so much money, and he's running his program so well. Like, everybody has to weigh that decision when it's the right time to leave. But I do think that you're seeing more and more guys at the college level open to going to the NFL because, in a way, it's a simpler existence in the day and age that we're living in.
Yeah, there's a schedule. There's like a calendar on how things work. Free agency's at this time, okay, as opposed to having to worry about free agency throughout the entire year, every day of your life. You have to worry about a potential negotiation that might just walk into your office and be like, hey, here's the deal. We're 7 games into this. I'm your starting quarterback. I'm going to need $750 million, or I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm out of here. Like, that is certainly something that's a little bit different than in the NFL. But as you were chatting about it there, and Dan Lanning says the grass is damn green in Oregon because everybody thinks that the grass is going to be green in other places. But NFL, who knows if that's a different opportunity for him? I think he's a college ball guy.
Yeah.
I think he is.
For sure.
I'm excited to see what he does. And he does have a big NIL behind him. But whenever this ruling gets made and there's basically a salary cap coming to college ball. Okay, now it's going to be $21 million or something like that, and then that's going to be broke down to how much money is going to go to the football team versus the basketball team and everybody else. But you're going to get a chance now to actually, if you want to be a GM in the NFL, there's going to be an opportunity to actually be GM of like college football teams.
Yeah, no, that's happening.
And your guy, right, just left to go to St. Bonnie Woj.
Yeah.
He's going to be the GM of that basketball team. It's like, I think there's a chance that the NFL GMs are going to get better over the next 20 years because there's going to be a pool of college, which I guess should be, that you can get like an example because everybody's going to have the same exact amount of money to use. If your school chooses to use the most for football, you're going to have to make decisions in what positions you want to go to. You're going to have to build your roster how you would build your roster. Are we spending money on offensive line more than other places? It's like, I think the evolution of this NIL thing, which sucks for some people, and there's a lot of college football coaches that say, this ain't what I'm about. I'm about development, and I don't want to deal with all the bullshit. We understand that. But I think the next generation of people that want to become NFL GMs or potentially want to be coaches, it's like there's now going to be a model where you're going to be able to practice, you're going to be able to display how good you are, and I think it's going to be great for football as a whole long term, let alone all the games we're getting this year with conference realignment and the teams that are once Indiana was dead, but with the NIL and with transfer portal, they're good again. It's like there's a lot of good coming. There's some bad, but I think that's something I haven't even thought of until like right now. Like there's going to be GMs of college teams that are going to get gigs in the NFL for GMs. That's going to be wild to talk about 10, 15 years.
We are in a totally different day and age. There's never been anything like this, where the money is going around at college, and so people who are overseeing that, like Michigan, my school, they hired a guy by the name of Sean McGee, who used to be with the Bears, who came back to Michigan, who is now helping to oversee all this money and how it goes out. And I think of Jake Rosenberg, who was in Philadelphia and helping to run the Eagles cap situation, leaving there to go assist universities and help colleges dole out money and figure out how they're going to spend money. That world is just beginning to unfold the way that is. Woj leaving this reporting job to go be the GM of the Bonnies, go Bonnies, and Woj. I mean, it's a different world that we're living in. It's being redefined on a regular basis, and again,
that's awesome.
We'll see where it all goes.
Just as a thought, there was only like 32 really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there was only 32 jobs that you could really showcase if you had it or not. Everybody else is playing fantasy football.
Sure.
Like that is what it is. Now it's like
crazy.
With this ruling that's coming too, I think the money is going to be, even if you're a smaller school that doesn't have as much money as somebody else, I think the salary cap is going to be around the same as everybody else. NIL is still going to have a purpose. There's going to be promotional money on the other side. The big schools are still going to have quite an advantage over everybody else, but there's like an opportunity to be, all right, how much money do I want to spend on a tackle? How much money do I want to spend on a wide receiver? And then your formula has proof on whether or not it will work or not.
Be tough. How those contracts going to be like binding though? Because that's been a big issue too. With like,
I think it's a 2-year thing. I think I think there's like a 1 year.
Have to be.
I think it's like a 2-year thing.
Okay.
I think because that was one of the.
That's the
news about it,
biggest issue.
I think it's supposed to, Q1, I believe, is the ruling coming out. There was people talking a couple weeks ago as if the ruling had already come out. I'm like, boy, did I miss something? I think that would have been big news. And I think there's a chance we have Charlie Baker, president of the NCAA, on this show within the next few weeks.
Nice.
I think there has been an exchange. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. Hey, Shefty, I know we got into college talk there and we wasted a lot of your time, but thank you so much.
You know what's amazing is you reached out this morning. We're going to come do this, and we said, okay, we're going to discuss the NFL coaching carousel because there's so much uncertainty. And while we're doing that, there's not a firing in Jacksonville, which everybody's been waiting to see what happens there, but there's a firing in New York. So on back-to-back days, the Giants bench Daniel Jones and go to Tommy DeVito. The Jets fire Joe Douglas. Nothing like New York to produce drama and headlines and fodder for the tabloids.
Football is the greatest.